Hello everybody, so my name's Louisa Rose Mackleston and I work in the film and TV industry as an assistant director. I also have my own Keighley-based production company called Northern Fortress Films, where I produce, write and direct my own films. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about the journey to where I am today. So working in the film industry wasn't something that I always wanted to do. I remember being a teenager and having absolutely no idea of what to do with my life. I knew I had interests, things like playing music, doing a little bit of acting, netball, but there was nothing that really stuck with me that I felt strongly enough about to want to pursue a career in. In the end, I settled on psychology. I find people really interesting, their backgrounds, their motivations, their behaviour, and I decided that I'd like to learn more about the human mind. So I packed my bags and off I went, aged 18, and moved down to London to study. Side note, that was a little bit of a culture shock because I did not expect to pay £5 for a pint. Now it's even worse. Honestly, a pint of Guinness down there a few weeks ago. Need to take out a new mortgage. So after a few months of studying, I realised I wasn't enjoying it as much as I thought I would. I then began to question myself and question whether or not I could have a career in psychology in the long term. At 21, I graduated and I was back to square one with no idea of what I wanted to pursue. I'd had a lot of part-time freelance jobs whilst I was studying. I worked for a market research company, travelling up and down the country, interviewing people and getting their opinions on anything from dog food to Lucozade. I was sold wills and life insurance for a while, which was definitely not for me. And I worked as a conference hostess at big international trade shows. So as you can tell, I was a little bit of a hustler, working lots of different freelance jobs, depending on what was being offered. At work one day, a friend suggested to me and said I should try working on set as an extra or a supporting artist, as we call them in the industry. They said the money was really good and you spend most of the time sat on a dining bus, reading and waiting to go on set anyway. I'd heard about being an extra before. It was something I'd always wanted to do, but I had no idea how to do it. They referred me to an agency, and a couple of headshots and measurements later, I was on their books. When I booked my first extras job, I found myself being really excited and nervous to get on set. The first job went well, and the agency I signed up for booked me on lots of others after that. I worked on things like EastEnders, Holby City, BBC dramas, commercials, and even a couple of big feature films. Whenever I was on set, I always had fun and enjoyed what I was doing, and it just led me to wonder, why can't every day at work be like this? Instead of counting down the minutes till it was over, I got sad when the day was coming to an end. Now, I'm not sure if it was a narrative that I'd come up with or one that had been ingrained in me from school, but I'd never properly considered a career in a creative industry. Being a reasonable achiever at school, the expectation to get a proper job was always there, but the thought of working a more traditional 9-to-5 job was never appealing to me. After falling in love with the freelancer lifestyle, I decided to create a checklist of things that I wanted from a job or career in order to work for me. So, number 1, I wanted a job where I'd get paid to travel. I've always wanted to see different parts of the country and the world, and what better way to do it than getting paid? Number 2, I wanted every day to be different. I like the idea of every day being a mini adventure with different challenges getting thrown at me. And number 3, I wanted to have flexibility to have weeks or months off if I wanted it. So I've got a chronic pain condition, and when I flare up, my body needs a bit of time to rest and recuperate. And number 4, I wanted to love what I was doing. I've struggled with mental health problems, and I've always found life to be more challenging when I haven't been loving the work that I've been doing. So the film and TV industry ticked all these boxes for me. My partner and I at the time signed up to loads of Facebook groups that advertised jobs in the industry. I applied to so many, and then I finally got my first break on the very glamorous, wait for it, Dickinson's Real Deal. It was great fun, and I soon got over my anxiety and into the swing of things. I had a lot of transferable skills from my previous job that came in really handy and gave me a bit of a confidence boost. With a real TV credit under my belt and on my CV, I carried on applying to job posts to try and get more experience. Getting that first credit really helped, and I went on to do some work in reality TV, and then I spent the summer travelling around the country working on In for a Penny with Stephen Mulhern, which was very fun, as you can imagine. I considered going down the unscripted TV route for a while, but after being offered a runner job on a big features film, I decided that working in scripted drama is where I really wanted to be. And I soon started to work my way up the assistant director ladder, being in charge of looking after the cast, booking and directing extras, and coordinating the shoot. I was working very long hours, sometimes 6 days a week, but I was absolutely loving it. I saw every day on set as an opportunity to learn. I was fascinated by all the different departments, what the different jobs entailed, and how they all came together to create this really cool thing, this piece of art that was the sum of so many people's input. I had a new appreciation for every film I saw, every TV series I watched, and I began to feel inspired to write my own content. So when the pandemic hit, I found myself with a lot of time on my hands as the film industry, like a lot of others, ground to a halt. I wrote a couple of short scripts and spent a lot of time trying to think about what stories excite me, what messages were important to share, and what kind of content I wanted to put into the world. At that point, it was more of a dalliance of an idea, something I wanted to do, but wouldn't likely happen for a few years. I kept on writing, I kept on doing Zoom webinars with some of the people that are here today, like Screen Skills, and I kept on learning about different areas of the industry, so I understood the process as a whole, rather than just what happens on set. In the summer of 2020, I was flown out to Estonia to work on an interactive horror film. And whilst I was there, a friend sent me a newsletter for some Bradford-based funding that had been released and that was looking for local filmmakers. I applied and was absolutely amazed when I got it. They commissioned my first funded short, Ruth and Sophia. Ruth and Sophia is a story about a teenage Syrian refugee in Bradford and an isolated older lady that meet by chance and bond whilst working on an allotment together. I noticed that all my scripts had similar themes, northern stories tackling taboo issues with characters that are relatable, real people. I felt really passionate about representing people truthfully on screen and telling the stories of northern people from an inside perspective instead of that stereotypical portrayal that we often see on TV. I'd learned a lot about the importance of diversity and representation, and I made it my mission to try and change this and change the way the North is seen, but also the way us Northerners think about ourselves. And so Northern Fortress Films was born. Now, I want to share a little bit some statistics on diversity and representation, specifically in the film and TV industry. So, when I say diversity, I'm referring to ethnicity, class, ability, gender, sexuality, neurodivergence, religious and regional diversity as well. So only 0.3% of the workforce in the film sector has a disability. Only 2.22% of television programmes are directed by directors from ethnic minority backgrounds. Data collected by the BFI in 2020 demonstrates that women encompass only 25% of all credited roles, 32% of cast, and 24% of crew members. These statistics highlight how disproportionately represented certain groups are in the film and TV industry. Now I'm going to throw some Yorkshire-specific statistics at you. So the Office of National Statistics data shows that 54% of screen industry's employment is found in London, with a further 10% in South East England, meaning that 36% of the screen industry employment is spread out along the rest of the country. Now, we're seeing a shift, we're noticing changes, and it is going up. The representation is being pulled out of London, which is a great thing. Ethnic minority workers encompass only 1.7% of all creative media industry workers in Yorkshire and the Humber, whilst ethnic minority workers in the whole economy in Yorkshire is 5.5%. The concentration of screen industry employment in London means that a disproportionate amount of content is created there, giving less screen time to regional stories and content, and less employment opportunities to regional crew. So why is representation important? Watching film and TV is more than just a form of entertainment. It helps us to understand ourselves, it shapes how we see others and society. When we as audiences see characters that are relatable, real people, our experience is validated. Film has the power to inspire and cause enormous social change, addressing structural inequality through giving on-screen role models. Now, a great example of this is the Scully effect. So, a Gina Davis Institute report found that 63% of women that work in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematical roles, say that Dana Scully is their role model, a special agent / doctor played by Gillian Anderson, icon, in The X-Files. Representation on screen, when done correctly, has the ability to empower audiences and positively affect our self-image. However, misrepresentation is still a big issue on screen, and arguably this is due to a lack of diversity. If audiences are being told stories from the same demographic of people, for example, if a white middle-class man is directing a film about a young, queer, disabled black woman, the story is always going to be told through their lens of this white middle-class man, rather than from the perspective of someone who has that lived experience. This can lead to misrepresentation and stereotypical portrayals of certain demographics, which can be extremely harmful, as we know, and can lead to internalisation of these negative stereotypes. That's why diversity is so important, not only on screen, but in the teams behind the camera, working together to create something authentic. What's my overall message? The film and TV industry is an amazing, challenging, creative environment to work in, but it does have its flaws. However, it is changing. Both small organisations such as myself at Northern Fortress and larger organisations such as the ones here today are making a conscious effort to improve accessibility and social mobility for people from underrepresented backgrounds. It's no longer a rich white man's game. Your voice is important, and if this is the career that you want to pursue, then please go for it. And when you succeed, remember to hold the door open for those less privileged than you. Thank you very much.